In tonight's news edition, a joint operation by the public security and gendarmerie cracks down on 40 criminals and seizes stolen vehicles, weapons, drugs, and currencies in the south of the kingdom. The United Nations Human Rights Office says a video appearing to show Syrian rebels killing soldiers could constitute a war crime that should be prosecuted. And with the U.S. elections less than 4 days away, Barack Obama tells supporters that he is still the candidate of change. The Republican challenger says he's the one to bring true change. Good evening and welcome to the news at 10. In a joint operation, public security and gendarmerie personnel seized 72 stolen vehicles, weapons, drugs, and currencies during a security campaign in southern Jordan. The public security said about 1,500 security personnel took part in the crackdown, which targeted drug dealers and a group suspected of car thefts. 40 people were arrested during the operation for questioning and will be released if proven innocent of charges. Chief of Public Security, General Hussein Majali, thanked citizens of the area for providing help and facilities to security personnel during the campaign. Majali said the Royal Badia Forces and the criminal investigation personnel will continue the security campaign to apprehend those who violate the law. The public security will also inspect all stolen vehicles, return them to their owners, and bring persons involved in car thefts to justice. In what has become a weekly practice, Islamists and their supporters staged a peaceful rally at Al-Kaluti Mosque in Amman Friday noon prayers. They called for an end to Wadi Araba Treaty as well as the Camp David and Oslo Accords with Israel. The protesters also called for unity to confront Israeli attempts to Judea's Palestinian lands. In another march in the southern city of Tafile, participants pledged allegiance to the king and announced some who cast doubt on the role of the Great Arab Revolt in building the country. Participants in the march voiced support to the reform process led by His Majesty the King and rejected any attempt to destabilize the security of Jordan. The Southern Mazar, popular and youth activists called for accelerating the political and economic reform process and demanded the release of detainees who were arrested during protests. They also called for fighting corruption, holding free and fair elections, enhancing press freedoms, and amending the press and publications law. Syrian government warplanes intensified airstrikes on suburbs of the capital that have fallen under rebel control. The strikes on Damascus have zeroed in on the densely populated Sunni Muslim areas known as the Eastern Ghouta, a stronghold of rebels fighting to overthrow the president. State media say the military is cleansing terrorists from the area. Activists say the government forces resorted to heavy aerial bombardment after failed attempts by ground troops to seize back the suburbs. Meanwhile, activists say the Syrian army abandoned its last base near the northern town of Saraqib for fierce assaults by rebels. The move is seen to further isolate the strategically important city of Aleppo from the capital. The pullout followed coordinated rebel attacks yesterday against 3 military posts south of Aleppo, in which 28 soldiers were killed. A video that appears to show Syrian rebels killing soldiers who had surrendered could constitute a war crime that should be prosecuted. This came at a news briefing in Geneva by Rupert Colville, a spokesman for the United Nations Human Rights Office. He said the incident will be examined closely, although it may be difficult to identify the perpetrators and the location where the footage was recorded. We get more with Luay Balkar.
The disturbing incident looks to be the latest atrocity committed by the opposition fighters seeking to topple the Syrian president. The United Nations Human Rights Office has vowed to look into the incident.
We need to examine this carefully. It will be examined carefully. But the allegations are that these were soldiers who were no longer combatants. And therefore, at this point, it looks very likely that this is a war crime. Another one. Unfortunately, this could be just the latest in a string of documented summary executions by opposition factions as well as by government forces and groups affiliated with them, such as the Shabiha.
A monitoring group in Syria says anti-government rebels killed 28 soldiers yesterday attacks on 3 army checkpoints around Saraqib, a town on Syria's main north-south highway. According to the video footage, some of the dead were shot after they had surrendered. Rebels berated them, calling them Assas dogs, before firing round into their bodies as they lay on the ground. The footage, which has been widely publicized around the world, deals a further blow to the rebels' image and is seen as embarrassing for their foreign supporters. The UN Human Rights spokesman says reports of excesses and atrocities by opposition forces were few and far between. But towards the end of the last year and increasingly during this year, observers have seen more events like this happen.
And once again, we call on all parties to the conflict in Syria to respect international human rights law and international humanitarian law, and there should be really no illusions that accountability will follow. There's a lot of evidence for many of these crimes that have been taking place. This video, if it's verified, if the details become a little clearer, could well be part of that evidence.
Amnesty International and the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights both condemned the apparent executions. UN human rights investigators, led by Brazilian Paulo Pinheiro, have gathered evidence and testimony on atrocities committed by government forces as well as by armed rebels in the 19-month-old conflict. The team has already drawn up a confidential list of suspects for future prosecution, either by an international tribunal or by Syrian National Court if feasible. Luay Balqar for the news at 10.
In a bid to save energy and cut huge energy subsidies, the Egyptian government is planning to shut non-tourism shops and restaurants by 10 p.m. daily, aiming at economic retrieve. Officials assure the idea would save nearly $1 billion. The plan, however, first suggested by Petroleum Minister Osama Kamal and approved by the cabinet, immediately stirred controversies among retailers and shop owners. Business heads and consumer groups blame the new government of trying to jeopardize the livelihood of people, especially those working on night shift.
The idea will affect the country, the production, tourism and transportation, because 10 o'clock is very early. If I have a worker, he will have to leave even before 10 to find transportation and get home. But if they make it midnight, then we all win.
It's really hard to close at 10 o'clock. Our work starts here after 7 or 8, so it's impossible for us to shut down only 2 or 3 hours after that. It's in the evening when we have most of our sales.
Metro and city trains came to a halt in the Greek capital, forcing hundreds of thousands of commuters to seek alternative routes to work as train drivers went on strike. The train drivers are angered by a new wave of austerity measures expected to be approved by the Greek parliament. Athens suffered a further gridlock when more than 100 engineers coming from across the country blocked streets around the finance industry to protest at changes to their pensions and health insurance. Here's more.
More misery in Greece as engineers and train drivers protest tough austerity measures, with the 24-hour strike causing chaos in Athens. Around 100 angry engineers blocked the streets around the finance ministry to protest changes to their pensions and health insurance. They say the integration of their insurance into a state-run health fund will lead to fewer medical services. This engineer said the future of the profession is at stake, with young recruits having to quit because they can't afford the new insurance payments. Greece's Labour Minister defended the controversial labour reforms in Parliament. He said the situation was tragic, but things had to change because 400 to 500 million euros in its pension funds was being lost every year. The flash train and metro strike resulted in sprawling traffic jams, bringing further misery to beleaguered Greek commuters. The government introduced unpopular austerity measures are required to appease EU and IMF lenders and secure bailout money Athens desperately needs to avoid running out of cash next month.
U.S. President Barack Obama returned to the campaign trail yesterday after suspending his re-election campaign earlier in the week due to Hurricane Sandy. After rallies in Wisconsin and Nevada, Obama ended his day with a campaign rally at the University of Colorado in Boulder, where 10,000 supporters were present. While he spoke about devastation along the East Coast brought about by Sandy and the long way it will take the affected states to deal with the storm, he praised the unity of Americans in the face of crisis. With the elections less than 4 days away, Obama told the cheering supporters that he is still the candidate of change.
That's why I know what real change looks like, because I fought for it. I've got the scars to prove it. I've got gray hair to show for it.
Republican presidential candidate Mitt Romney offered his closing argument to voters by asking Americans to decide whether they want more of the same from President Barack Obama or real change by electing him on Tuesday. Romney was making a last-minute foray into Wisconsin, a state Obama won in 2008.
Real change is not measured in words. Real change is measured in achievements. And 4 years ago, candidate Obama promised to do so very much, but he's fallen so very short. He promised to be a post-partisan president, but he became the most partisan, blaming, attacking, dividing. He said he was going to focus on creating jobs. Instead, he focused on Obamacare, which killed jobs. He said he was going to cut the federal deficit in half, and then he doubled it.
Meanwhile, a report by the Department showed employers added over 170,000 new people to their payrolls in October. The government also said 84,000 more jobs were created in August and September than previously estimated. With the new employments, the jobless rates edged up to 7.9% and is seen to reflect an economic recovery. Head of Obama's Council of Economic Advisors said the report showed the U.S. economy is continuing to heal. The U.S. shuttle Atlantis rolled into retirement, taking a slow 16-kilometer ride atop a massive platform from Kennedy Space Center's Vehicle Assembly Building to the Visitors Center. Atlantis ended the 30-year-old space shuttle program with a final flight last year. Now it will be the star attraction of a new $100 million exhibit at the privately operated Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex adjacent to the NASA spaceport. The company which operates the Visitor Center plans to suspend the spaceship weighing almost 70 tons from the ceiling with its cargo bay doors open to simulate the vehicle in orbit. Atlantis is the third and last operational space shuttle to become a museum piece. Over its lifespan, it flew 33 missions. Apple fans braved cold temperatures in some parts of the world today to line up outside an Apple store to get their hands on the company's latest offering, the iPad mini. It was a mini turnout for the iPad mini in some cases, but those who stood outside the store were keen to be among the first to purchase the gadget. We get more in this report.
Queues outside Apple stores aren't unusual, but normally when a new product is launched, they're longer. The of the new iPad mini didn't inspire quite the same fervour as some past launches. But there were some, like this German shopper, who were prepared to go to extreme measures to be among the first to buy this scaled-back device. He waited overnight.
Ein besserer Wegbegleiter wie das alte
Easier to take out with you. A notebook and the old iPad were about the same size and meant you had to carry an extra kilo. Now it's only 300 grams, so it fits in your trouser or jacket pocket.
With a screen size of 7.9 inches, the Mini's looking to challenge rivals Google and Amazon. It's received mostly positive reviews, though its price tag and screen quality have come in for criticism. The tablet market's becoming increasingly crowded and competitive. Microsoft launched its 10-inch Surface tablet in October, powered by Windows 8 software. Apple's also started selling the 4th generation full iPad, and it's now competing with itself, says Ian Fogg from IHS Screen Digest.
Will a consumer buy a brand new iPhone 5 and an iPad mini and a new Mac? Probably not. They'll probably choose one or two of those at most. So Apple is essentially complicating things for itself by launching so many brand new products at the same time.
In the past, consumers have been willing to pay a premium for Apple products, but Fogg says the market looks tougher this time around.
The economy globally is not as strong as it was, and that is having an impact in terms of consumer purchasing behaviour. And the question really is not whether the iPad mini is a great product, I think it is, not whether it's better than the opposition, I think it is. It's more about how much money, how much disposable income do consumers have.
One analyst estimates Apple will sell between 1 and 1.5 million iPad minis in its first weekend. Its sales and those of rival Slate computers will be closely watched in the all-important run-up to Christmas.
And from the modern world of communication to the old, the remains of a World War II carrier pigeon was found during renovation at a southern England home. A Brit, David Martin, found the bird when he was cleaning out a Victorian fireplace he's unearthed. As he pulled the remains of the bird, which was obviously a racing pigeon, he said he found a red capsule attached to it. When he took the spool off, there was a cigarette paper with coded writing on it. Martin's home in Surrey is close to a hotel where Britain's General Montgomery planned the D-Day invasion of France. World War II experts are now trying to decipher the message sent by a Sergeant W. Stott and was meant to reach a mysterious XO2. Homing pigeons were often used by Allied forces to send messages during World War II. They fly at speeds of up to 80 kilometers per hour and can travel distances of up to 1,000 kilometers. Over to sports and the world of Formula One. Champion leader Sebastian Vettel set the practice pace ahead of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix that could bring him a 5th win in a row. The German lapped the floodlit Yas Marina circuit with the quickest lap of 1 minute 1.7 seconds in the evening session after McLaren's Lewis Hamilton claimed the honors in the afternoon with a time of 1 minute 45.2 seconds. Hamilton was second on the timesheet in the second practice for Sunday's day-to-night race, while teammate Jenson Button was third. Venus and Serena Williams' tour of Nigeria and South Africa continues. The duo delighted tennis fans by playing an exhibition match in Lagos Lawn Tennis Club in soaring heat. Although the match lacked the intensity of their professional games, nevertheless, the crowd backed up both players with great excitement.
What an opportunity.
Finally, a look at the weather. It will be partly cloudy tonight with northeasterly to northwesterly, light to moderate winds and a chance of light local rains. Tomorrow, warm weather conditions prevail in most regions, again with light rain in the southern and eastern regions. The Gulf of Aqaba should expect relatively hot weather tomorrow with northerly moderate to brisk winds and calm seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. To end the news, here's a reminder of our top stories. A joint operation by the Public Security and Gendarmerie cracks down on 40 criminals and seizes stolen vehicles, weapons, drugs, and currencies in the south of the kingdom. The United Nations Human Rights Office says a video appearing to show Syrian rebels killing soldiers could constitute a war crime that should be prosecuted. And with the U.S. elections less than 4 days away, Barack Obama tells supporters that he is still the candidate of change, while his Republican challenger says he's the one to bring true change. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news. I'm Nancy Khair. Thank you for watching and have a good night.